There were gunshots that happened in the Senate. He's like running around the halls of the Senate, and there's national agents chasing him. And he goes, Franco, I've got a crazier story for you. He said, this EV company, 300% sailed, despite the fact that our infrastructure for EVs suck. People post their electricity bill and it's zero.
Oh, snap.
Because they all have solar panels. We're the second largest nickel producer, which of course, as we all know, is important for batteries. But what we do is we just literally mine it out of the earth and export it raw.
Hey, Franco, good to see you in person again.
Hey, good to see you too, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, good to record this in Manila.
Yeah, every time I see you, it's like a different setting, right? We have it sometimes online over Zoom. Sometimes we have it in person in another setting.
Like beach resort.
Yeah,
this one.
beach resort. Yeah, and then there's a podcast booth, and now we're in Wada Hotel, which is great too.
Fantastic. Also a beautiful view.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. Like the view you have is Manila Bay. Of course, there's a new airport being built out there, so you have a nice, unique perspective of it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I only just recently learned from you, because you fly to the airport, and I think it's good. I think it works and it's functional, but it definitely gets crowded. And I feel like obviously the international terminal is nice, but the domestic terminal, which I've flown through as well, I think it's not as efficient.
Oh yeah,
so I think it's a good idea to have more capacity, and it's actually beautiful.
Yeah, right now everybody flies into combined between all the different terminals. I think it's over capacity by like 30-40% already, operating annually, right?
Yeah.
So they're doing a good job of upgrading it because it's a public-private partnership.
Right.
But yes, you're right. To have a new airport online coming relatively soon would be, I think, very helpful to the Philippine economy.
Yeah, I think the Philippines, like you mentioned before, is so many islands, and so you fly, I mean, from place to place, unless you gotta take a ferry, and the ferry's gonna take much longer.
Yeah.
Safety-wise, also is a problem as well.
True. Well, and practically, let's be honest, right? Right now you fly into Manila and it's the international terminal. If you need to connect somewhere, you have to get on a bus and then get on a highway to get to the other terminal. It doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
When I fly, I need to change terminals. Whereas here, it's a big pain in the ass to get from one terminal to the other, and then you get to the islands.
Yeah.
So I think broadly, we're all very excited with this just simple idea of having one massive, seamless experience to arrive and then to depart for a domestic destination.
Yeah. Well, I think exciting times, and I'm looking forward to visit the new airport when it comes out. When is it going to be done by, roughly?
Man, I mean, there's always there's time, and then and if we look at it right now, it's still, let's be honest, it's still like piles of sand.
Yeah, okay, so it's funny. Sorry, it'd be like, it'll be done by 2030.
I'm not going to say that, dude.
Then like 2050.
Yeah. I'm not going to go viral in 2020, 28 or whatever, dude. I'm not going to go viral then. So I don't know, like, who knows?
Never give a number.
Man. I'm not going to look at myself at like 40, 48 years old and be like, oh, look, Franco predicted wrong.
To be fair, construction always has delays anyway, like anywhere. So
yeah, probably a little bit more so in the Philippines, but you're right.
There's delays everywhere. Yeah, okay, I'm being fair.
Nice trap.
So I think we also went through since the last that we did about many months ago, and today I think it was interesting because we pretty much recorded this at the start of the energy crisis from the Middle East,
right.
And now I think we recently received notification that Iran and the US have signed a ceasefire deal that promises to release the blockade by both parties. They're going to demine the straits, and I think energy prices have gone down globally because it looks good. But I'm just curious, what's the view from Philippines?
So I read the same thing actually. So I think it was really just within 24 hours that we saw that deal being signed, and even within like 5 hours, I was seeing that below $4 a gallon.
Sorry.
Wow, look at that.
I know.
This is, dude, are we going through a brownout right now?
No.
Oh, I thought you got to keep that in because we were talking about the energy crisis. All of a sudden,
it's so good. The energy is so good. I don't know. For some reason, this hotel room, because moving enough, it lowers energy. Which is good for energy efficiency.
That's hilarious, right? When I was talking about energy efficiency.
It's like we're doing well now. Energy is below $4.
No, but I was saying in the U.S., you could see that's more about consumer sentiment and the businesses predicting. In the Philippines, I don't think we've seen it yet, right? It's obviously been less than a day or so since the deal has been signed. Plus, of course, there's just been a lot of news that says even if there's a deal signed, it would still take a long time for us to get back to regular pricing.
Yeah.
Just because we've spent a lot of renegotiating deals, doing all these different things.
Right.
it's not going to be overnight that we're just going to go back to normal, right?
Right.
Overnight that we're just going to start receiving ships full of oil from the Strait of
Yeah.
Hormuz,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's what happens to our energy prices. Of course, we're very excited that it looks very positive. But yeah, period, right? I was telling you off camera that one of the random benefits, I guess, of what wound up happening is that it just skyrocketed,
Yeah.
right? I have that companies, it imports EVs from abroad. And he was telling, well, first of all, I said, hey, and this was in the first like 3 weeks of the crisis. I was telling him that I was in touch with somebody from Kia. And Kia was telling me that in the Philippines, their sales went up 30% for electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's crazy in 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, Franco, I've got it for you. He said, this EV company, which is all EVs, right?
Right.
And sale boost. And
300%.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's going to keep growing. That
300%.
increase is going to keep going. But
Yeah.
nobody's going to forget that.
Nobody's going to forget that. And it's true. You can see it on the roads today, right? I know another interesting tangent to that is actually the success of BYD in this country.
Right.
Of course, they tied up with one of the large conglomerates. And I was very surprised to hear, because I was going down this path of like, okay, is the EV shift real in the Philippines? And that in a short 3 years, BYD went and became the 3rd largest vehicle retailer in the Philippines.
Right.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like that actually distributes the vehicles here. They actually other
Right.
Japanese cars, German cars,
Right.
and really focus on BYD. And all of a sudden, it's the 3rd largest distributor of vehicles in this entire country
Huge.
in 2 years.
Yeah.
So the EV shift is real. What's really crazy about that, and again, like this crisis just really super boosted that.
Right.
What's crazy about that is that that's despite the fact that our infrastructure for EVs suck.
Yeah.
It's not like we have chargers all over the place, man.
Right. Yeah.
But people are still doing it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. During times of crisis, really surprise me in the way that they can really adapt quickly and despite things, right?
Right.
This happened during COVID. I talk about it all the time, the digitization of the Philippines.
Right.
And Filipinos are like, all right, I can't give you cash right now, so let's do Gcash. And all of a sudden, it's like the biggest app in the
Right.
country, and we can talk about that later.
Of course.
And then now this crisis is just led to this EV
Right.
boom. And by the way, just really pushed this renewable energy push in this country.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of negative things, and we can go into the negative stuff too. I like to focus on the positive things.
Right.
In times of crisis, Filipinos really show you where they want to go
Yeah.
and what businesses, like our fund, for example, can invest in.
Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
I think it's like 3 quick facts that are quite interesting. But speaking about BYD, they've been pushing hard. And I think about a year ago, they skyrocketed. I think Toyota used to be like obviously the number one car brand.
Yeah.
And then like about a year ago, they got to like the best-selling car brand,
Yeah.
electric, the whole combination. I think especially a lot of smart features, like nice tablet, in the car, which makes it a good entertainment for folks. So I thought there was a really big change about a year ago. And in Singapore, every car has a 10-year license. So what it means is that you pay to have the right to drive a car or the license to drive for 10 years. And then you pretty much have to scrap it effectively. And so I think there's an interesting case where electric vehicles pretty low, but pretty much within 10 years, Singapore effectively go 100% electric. Anybody who's like, because all the cars will just have to get,
they have to get replaced. Yeah.
So I think Singapore is going to go through that. It's starting to go through the S curve now, where 2 years ago it was pretty rare.
Yeah.
But now I think you're really seeing that skyrocket. So I think that's one piece.
Yep.
Second part that's interesting is that I signed up for normally the Standard Chartered Marathon.
Okay.
At the end of every year.
Nice.
In like early December.
Yes.
And this year is the B Marathon.
Standard Chartered is not the main.
It's not the main one. Now they're doing a sub
sponsor
race,
one.
which is like, I think they're doing like 10 km.
BYD
But
came in
42 and
took
half
over.
marathon is BYD.
Whoa.
And I thought that was crazy because I think it's interesting because you have like Hyrox, which makes sense. Like health. Hyrox is in health.
Yeah.
Up like people who would do Hyrox are middle class plus who
Yeah.
had money to do that.
Yeah.
I think you're like,
Interesting.
wait, if you're doing a marathon, it's a car company. I don't know. It's like a Toyota marathon.
Yeah. It doesn't
like,
make sense because as a runner, you're thinking like, I'm gonna just. Actually, it makes sense now that I think about it because when you're a runner and you're thinking about cars, you're thinking about fumes of the car while you run. But BYD saying, listen, we don't have fumes.
Yeah, we don't have fumes with electric vehicles. It's about your health.
It's pretty smart.
I think it's pretty smart. So I was
smart.
like, I know my friend's like, oh, it's BYD, blah, blah. I was like, no, I feel like this is the first time. I think their swag should be pretty good.
At the very practical level, you're like, I hope the swag is good.
Oh, so it's good. It's like, do you get a free car with a lottery ticket?
I hope you win the car.
I don't know.
That's the case.
I think that I haven't announced the swag, so we'll see. We'll see. And the last thing that's real quick, it was quite interesting because my wife was like, hey, Jeremy, I saw my dream car. And I was like, oh, what is that dream car? Show me a picture. And I was blown away. It was like a Chinese EV, like sporty vehicle. And I was like, I don't know, it was just a weird moment because you're like, normally people would be
right?
the shift would be like, because people was like, your dream car everywhere, you're like, I don't know, they throw like a Mercedes,
Yeah.
a Ferrari, or obnoxious Lamborghini. Yeah, why
Yes.
not? Go for it. But those are like the classic standard. No one's gonna be like, because in the past people would be like, oh, my dream car is like a Lexus. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, it's like, I think to say like, can you imagine like saying like a Chinese car brand? Like
Yeah.
5 years ago, if you said, somebody would say, my dream car is a Chinese car,
Yeah.
everybody would just laugh at you.
Exactly.
That would be crazy.
What? Chinese make cars? That would be the first thing.
And everybody will be like, you shouldn't do it because it's unreliable. What if it breaks down on you? And there'll be all that negative language. And now we're at the age where we're like, the year where it's like, well, yeah. I
No,
guess,
you're
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And they did it so quickly. Like my wife also.
Yeah.
She has a dream van.
Yeah.
And in the past, the dream van
Yeah.
was a Japanese van.
Yeah.
Today, she's like, she gives me two options. She's like, these are the next vans that we should upgrade to, okay,
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
Japanese
yeah.
van. And it's like, it's two Chinese versions.
What?
And I'm like,
To upgrade from the Japanese to Chinese.
Yeah.
Wild.
that's an interesting
Yeah,
thing to think
yeah.
about, right? Because the Chinese have done such a great job
Yeah.
of this. Some time in Korea, 2011.
Yeah.
And I remember that was really when big Korean brands were trying to make a big global shift, right?
Yeah.
And a big global push.
Right.
There was a time, if you remember correctly, where we were all like, we thought of it as the, like, I wouldn't call it cheaper, but like the,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the
It was a follow-up
Japanese
brand.
and Korea, right?
Yeah.
And Korea made a big push and they had all this effort and these engineers from Volkswagen
Yeah.
and designers. And so like they would have these beautiful Hyundais that were like designed by people from Volkswagen in
Right.
the past, right? And remember, it was a multi-year shift to try to push it up market.
Yeah.
And it worked, right? So today, like people think of Kias and Hyundais in the same vein as they think of
Right.
Toyotas and
Right.
Hondas and,
Right.
and everything like that. But it was a very hard, long effort. But if you think about Chinese EVs, dude,
Yeah.
they came out of nowhere and all of a sudden they're viewed in exactly the same level.
Right.
And there was no story about like importing designers and all this
Yeah.
stuff. No, it was just like these cars came out,
Yeah.
you felt them, they were tactile, you saw exactly what you were saying, the nice
Yeah.
screens and all this stuff. And the consumer just bought into it right away. Now, of course, the price plays a
Yeah.
part to that as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is probably financed by the Chinese government.
Yeah.
But what a way to win to the consumer so quickly across Southeast Asia and Europe, I think, too. Right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing what the Chinese have done with the EV growth.
And I think if you take the Chinese perspective as well, it's like, yeah, I think they've done a lot of subsidies with the local governments. But if you look at the other car industries, like in Malaysia, Proton, the Koreans, the Japanese, the Germans, and Americans, if you look at the time shift of history, they did have a lot of subsidies and support over a longer period in the past. So now, right now, they don't have those subsidies to the same extent.
Yeah.
But you look on a historical, cumulative piece, but I think that's the Chinese point of view is like, hey, you're saying that I'm subsidizing it now, but you subsidized it over the past 30 years.
That's very true.
So now you're not subsidizing as much. But the total amount subsidized is the same, right?
Yeah, that's actually true. That's a good way to think about it. Efficient.
So I think that's obviously is because it's gonna be interesting. Now I think an interesting part I just learned recently is like Malaysia isn't adopting EVs as much. And the big part is because they have massive subsidies for
The domestic
for petrol, for domestic. So
Yeah.
I think historically it was for everybody, there's unlimited cap. And then what happened was that actually this oil crisis was hugely painful for the current government of Malaysia because they had made promised a certain price effectively per gallon, but the energy went up, and so the fuel bill went crazy.
Yeah.
But effectively, the price was still the same.
Yes.
And so basically, in Malaysia, people feel like they drive very far, they drive from city to city,
Yeah.
and gas never changed.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's such a different experience from like the Filipino consumer.
Exactly. And so everyone's just driving still gas cars, Malaysia electric vehicle stimulus.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
Which
It's
is crazy.
like kind of control.
Yeah. Filipinos, like, I mean, even the government gave us a lot of, tax breaks to, to buy and a lot of different advantages to buy EVs or hybrids in this country. So the shift was just very dramatic very quickly. And I think we're going to get to the same places, Singapore, relatively quickly as well, where it's going to be a vast majority EV over within the next 10 years. That's a prediction I can make.
There we go. That's good. That's good. Not so spicy.
Yeah, not so spicy.
But I think one interesting thing about the Malaysia side as well is like it's causing this political stability issue for them because the current administration, they passed like basically a balanced budget bill. And so basically the committee is saying we're going to keep up. So that's one. But then two is this was done before the Iran war. And then this fuel subsidy basically became this giant thing, billions and billions of dollars, and then is running into it. But I think probably the government is much happier now because with this energy crisis is going to resolve. And as of the point of time of recording.
Yes, at the time of recording.
Then that means they can foresee that they don't have the unpalatable move of cutting the subsidy or breaking the budget balancing bill they had passed.
Lucky them.
It's lucky them.
Lucky
them.
them.
It was literally, I think.
Probably they're like, Trump, sign this thing now. Iran, sign this thing now.
It's not an easy situation for so many folks. So it was interesting because I think if you asked me like months ago, we were like, oh, it's okay because Malaysia is a domestic oil producer. But
100%.
It turns out that because of that subsidy promise that there's pretty much, I don't know what's the word. It's not enshrined, but it's like just everybody just takes it as granted.
Yeah, they're like, oh, okay,
yeah, it's my right to have this.
It's not going to go up.
And it's in a sticky price in people's head.
Yeah.
So, and I thought it was such an interesting divergence from our conversation last time around because we thought Malaysia would be in a better position.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect it to cost billions of dollars. I thought be like, no.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Interesting how these types of crises bring out these little cracks in the system.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people now know that this is something that happens. But let's talk about also a little bit about energy as well. I think, what was the experience of the Philippines during this energy piece? Anything else it revealed or showed? Were there like brownouts or?
There definitely were.
There were brownouts?
There was actually a week where it was really 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And I think it was a convergence of a lot of different things, including like a crazy heat wave.
Oh,
right. So I think that probably pushed us to the edge.
Yeah.
And I remember very clearly that it was like a Wednesday where we had one of the hottest days on record of the year, and potentially of the last couple of years, where effectively outside it felt like it was something like 50 or 55 degrees Celsius.
Shit. Yeah.
So you had that happening. And then like I remember on Thursday, there was already warnings like, okay, we're getting to like capacity. Like we don't know if we have enough power, and there were some light recommendations, like maybe you should like not run the air conditioning that much and stuff. Did Filipinos listen? I don't think so, really. But that said, I think the one part where Filipinos listened was a lot of folks did go into hybrid work even before that, right? And a lot of offices were like closed on Fridays and all that anyway. But despite all that, by Friday of that week, there were some blackouts that were happening, very short.
Yeah.
Like a couple hours here and there, but even in portions of Makati, which is one of the CBDs of Manila, you were starting to see buildings go dark for a little bit. And I think that was relatively surprising to residents of Makati and BGC. I don't think BGC saw any, but Makati did. But it was relatively surprising because by and large, Makati is generally untouched when things like of this nature happen.
Right.
So we lost a little bit of power. Thankfully, it was back and fully online again by the next week. The weekend power is not such an issue, like the power demand, just because nobody's in the office and all that. So we were back to normal by Saturday, Sunday, and then by Monday it was back. They use color coding here, so like on Friday it was like red, right? Red meaning don't try to not to use too much power, and then by Monday it was green already. Like okay, everything's normal, right?
Yeah.
But so I think that's a convergence of a lot of different things. It's first of all, infrastructure wise, we just don't have enough power in this country. That's for sure, right? This is another reason why, for example, like data centers are very tough to put up here. Right. And I've heard this from a couple of data center operators that's a key issue.
Right.
Of course, manufacturing, 30% of our production, 30% of the cost is power right now because we have not enough supply, so it's very expensive, right? The supply issue. And then there's the fact that we had heat, and then there's the oil crisis, and then it just all cascaded into blackouts.
Yeah, I thought it was this interesting because it wakes people up. In Singapore, it was the energy. Same for Malaysia as well. I think Vietnam definitely went through a lot of pain for them as well. So I think it's been interesting to see that. But I think definitely, everyone's going to get everyone's starting I think even in Singapore, everyone's much looking at solar cells now as much as possible. Because it's like, yeah, is it the best ROI? Not necessarily, but why not, right? So I think that it woke up a lot of people's minds to it as well.
Well, in the Philippines, nationally, that one of the things about this power crisis, oil crisis, I should say, it's really pushed the country towards, especially the national government, towards thinking more about renewable energy, right? That's just, it just makes sense in
A lot of wind, offshore wind,
Water.
you have water,
a lot of water,
you
dude.
got,
a lot of sun.
5 Celsius, like, mwah, delicious sunlight.
Let's just do this, right?
It's the perfect time. It's like, it's super
Exactly.
hot, switch on the air conditioning and the solar cells crushing it, right?
What goes viral in Reddit today is, I use a lot of Reddit. Actually, I that's an interesting insight, but one of these days we'll talk about that. But I use a lot of Reddit because I try to see the heart of what Filipinos think is anonymous, right? And what goes viral on Reddit is when people post their like electricity bill and it's zero.
Oh, snap.
Because they all have like solar panels.
Oh, shit, yeah.
And so people are like, oh my gosh, what is it? And you can see that there's just all this interest. But nationally, of course, the Department of Trade and Industry, the national government really has this big push towards making things renewable in this country. So that's something I think we can look forward to.
And I think one last thing is just very quickly is just like, if you get an electric vehicle, your car can be basically a giant battery, right? you know?
Yeah.
So like, historically, people wanted to buy their own battery packs, etc. You're like, no, your electric vehicle can be a giant battery for your whole home, which is, the whole ecosystem works real quick.
100%.
I know.
100%.
So talking about your governments and like going through policy, how's that going through? Because when I read the news, I think there's some like political turmoil or moves are happening. What somebody was
you tell me, what did you hear?
What I think what it came up on Google News was like, what I think what the headline was like, gunshots in the parliament.
Okay,
That's what I got.
Yeah,
and after that, there was some sort of like chase that was happening.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then I like read it briefly.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but that was like the headline that.
Dude, it was. I was distracted. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was at work and I'm doing my thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes I would be like, hey, what's going on in the Senate, right? Like what's happening? And I'd have like the live stream going on. And like in most functioning countries, the Senate should just be a very boring thing. You're passing laws, you're proposing things, you know, I don't know. You're just doing a bunch of things that of the government. But over the last month or so, like it just got really exciting all of a sudden, right? If I could go into some detail, the first thing that happened was that Senate presidents traditionally in the Philippines, they don't change that often. I think we only had like 15, 16 Senate presidents in the history of the country, right? But over the last year, we've had 4. And it was just a lot of turnover, right? And the third one was like a little bit of a surprise. All of a sudden, this new Senate president comes in and it was like, wait a minute, how did that happen? Because you need majority, and there's just one specific senator that just hasn't been showing up to office for his own reasons, let's say, or actually needed to be in Senate to vote in this new Senate president.
Oh,
okay. So all of a sudden, and the national government actually is a little bit looking for him, right? Because they're like, hey man, we need you to come in and talk to us a little bit about some things going on abroad. So how does he get in? He sneaks in. He sneaks into, he's a senator, he sneaks into Senate. Because outside is all these different people, like national agents looking for him.
Oh boy.
He sneaks in through another senator's van.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the agents outside are like, oh my gosh, he's inside. So then kicks off this chase that you're talking about, which actually goes viral. He's like running around the halls of the Senate and there's national agents chasing him.
Wow.
And he makes it into the Senate floor.
Okay.
And of course the national agents are like, okay, can we get you here?
Yeah.
So can't get him. And he votes in this new Senate president.
Okay.
And this new Senate president says, hey man, hey national agents, listen, this guy's protected by the Senate. So you got to get out.
Yeah.
So they get out.
Yeah.
And that guy that snuck in stays in the Senate, like literally sleeps in the Senate.
Yeah.
Like he's in his office and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? He's protected by the Senate.
Yeah.
But then the question is, how did he get out?
Yeah.
So this is where the gunshots come into play.
Okay.
And by the way, this is still like being investigated, like not so sure what happened, but definitely there were gunshots that happened in the Senate. And definitely what wound up happening a few hours after that was that this guy was able to sneak out.
Yeah, gotcha.
So of course people are making the connection between the two.
Yeah.
So you have this senator that, depending on who you talk to, is avoiding the law.
Yeah.
On the other side, they're saying just living the life that he's supposed to live.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything wrong. That's the two opposing views. And then you have the Senate president that's like, oh, I'm the Senate president now.
Right.
What's up, guys?
Yeah.
And then you have this minority part of the Senate that's like, dude, you're not really the Senate. The guy just like he snuck in and then he took off.
Yeah.
And then in the meantime, a whole other senator got arrested.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So a whole other senator got arrested for, and this is part of this scandal that happened last year, right? So you have this balance of power that's changing within the Senate as the new Senate president just sits there, where there's a majority and minority usually in the Senate, and his power is quickly diminishing because one's gone on the loose somewhere, the other one's in jail.
Right.
And then there's about a month or so where there was an argument as to if he really was the Senate president or not.
Right. Wow.
And then only very recently, I think this past week, things were resolved.
Yeah.
Again, it really came down to how many senators were supporting each side, and one senator shifted over to the minority, then became the majority. So now there's a new Senate president.
Wow. It's that close, like
It was that close. It was like it took one vote,
Wow.
basically. It took one vote to swing because again, it had to do with the fact that there's two senators that are not around right now, right? And so now we're finally back to normal.
Right.
We should be back to boring.
Yeah.
And actually there's some very interesting movements, right? So one, I think, interesting movement there is that and this is, I think, very related to the growth of the Philippine startup ecosystem, for example. There's one senator, his name is Senator Bam Aquino, who actually was the original and main author of the Innovative Startup Act of the Philippines.
Oh, okay, great.
Right, which is really, if you think about it, prompted a lot of growth within the startup ecosystem in the Philippines. This is why there's a startup venture fund that invests from the government directly into this. This is why there's a lot of work at all the different departments to try to make it easier for startups to operate. This is why there's a startup grant fund that just gives equity-free grants to applicants. It all comes from this Innovative Startup Act. So this Senator Bam, who has spent the last couple of years being the head of various committees, is now, as of 2 days ago, the senator in charge of, I think it's entrepreneurship, science and technology.
Right. Fantastic.
So very relevant to what he had originally authored. And it makes it, I think, an easier conversation to have as we continue to lobby to change different things to make it just easier for entrepreneurs to do business in this country.
Right.
But yeah, so just to summarize, a very exciting time for Philippine Senate. I never thought I'd watch the Philippines live stream of the Philippine Senate.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But I think we're back to a good, stable
place
now, and it's business as usual.
Yeah, I mean,
It's wild, dude.
it's wild because the news headline was gunshots, and I thought it was like attack because there's a lot of political attacks that are happening in the world, right? Yeah, so
I'm sure.
so
It raises an eyebrow. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, what's going on? But no, I think thanks for sharing the context there.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting as well is that I think this overall administration is also making a lot of moves, I think, on the business side, I would say. I think, obviously, a lot of business with America as well. I think you were just telling me a little bit about something called Pax Silica.
Yeah. So I think it's an American-led initiative.
Yeah.
It made the news a lot over the last couple of months in the Philippines. We did a quick check, and it's April 17, I think, is when the Philippines signed on to the Pax Silica. It seems to be a multi-nation effort to basically just grow out key industries, right?
Yeah.
The Philippines is the 14th country to sign into this pact, Pax. Only this, when we looked at it very briefly, it was only the second in Southeast Asia, right? Singapore being the other one. And I think it's an interesting move. There has been a lot of effort separate of Pax Silica for the Philippines to really increase its manufacturing. And even within our own Philippine Private Capital Report at Foxmont, we identified semiconductor manufacturing as an interesting area where we can really level up and start going higher up the value chain, right? And Pax Silica seems to help answer some of that, right? And what did we see? So Pax Silica is, in the Philippine context, a way to create first of all, it's an investment into a large piece of land in a former American base called Clark. Now it's called Clark Global City.
Yeah.
And within there, create economic zones.
Right.
And within that, make key investments into key sectors. And I think what we both saw was critical minerals is one. So mineral processing, which is something that Foxmont already has studied as well in the Philippines. Right now in the Philippines, actually, we do have a lot of rare earth and minerals. Nickel, for example, we're one of the largest nickel producers in the world. In fact, I think we're the second largest nickel producer, which of course, as we all know, is important for batteries. But what we do is we just literally mine it out of the earth and export it raw.
Right.
But of
Oh,
course,
interesting.
a lot of the value is when you process these minerals, right? So I think Pax Silica, the discussion is to create processing onshore, which actually allows us to export much more valuable material out.
Yeah.
Higher value, right? That's one. Two is semiconductors, right? I'm not sure what Pax Silica's idea is. I assume it is to create a semiconductor manufacturing industry or spur semiconductor manufacturing industry in this country, which again, we already have one, right? It's just that one of our largest exports is TPs in this country, right? So we actually assemble, test, and package semiconductors already in this country. But of course, the highest value of all of that is design, right? Which we don't have here. And again, this is something that we identified in the Philippine Private Capital Report, and something that we've actually, as my organization, as Foxmont, as our investment mandate, has said we'd be very interested in investing in ourselves. It's like, dude, we're already doing ATP in this country, right? We already have our fingers in the pot a little bit, and all we have to do is, sounds simple, but all we have to do is like upskill everybody so that we can get to this IC design part.
Yeah.
And then we can fulfill two critical parts of the value chain of semiconductors.
Right.
Like, let's go, let's do it, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully, what we're hoping is with this new initiative of the Pax Silica, which is, they're calling it now the Luzon Economic Corridor, being of course a province where Metro Manila is based, and there's a whole bunch, and Clark Global City is based as well. With Pax Silica's, this push for Pax Silica, international governments, 18 of them, Philippine national government, private sector, investments like Foxmont going into it, like we think that this could actually be a very positive change where we go towards what really can fulfill the potential of the Philippines.
Yeah.
So we're excited.
Exciting. There's a lot to unpack there. I think one is obviously Pax Silica as a move, and then two, of course, conductor across the region versus the Philippines. I think a lot of that is actually new to me on the semiconductor side on the Philippines. I think first of all, the thing that strikes me is like Pax Silica, which is like what was used to describe the Roman Empire.
Yeah. I remember from the movie Gladiator, man.
Gladiator. Is it Marcus Aurelius was the emperor?
Yes.
And then Russell Crowe.
Yeah, Russell Crowe.
Okay.
My wife's gonna kill me. I can't remember the exact line right now.
Okay. Anyway, so I like Marcus Aurelius a lot because Meditation is a book, and I watched that. Yeah. Anyway, Pax Romana, but it's also interesting to see Pax Silica. It's an interesting choice of name. But yeah, it makes sense to collaborate. I think semiconductor across the region obviously has always been quite regional and distributed.
Yep.
If you look at hardware manufacturers like the Japanese or Apple, they're assembling across Asia because they do different parts in different countries, right? And Penang is a big hub. Singapore's also doing a big chunk of packaging, and then the Philippines and Vietnam. I think so. It's interesting to see all these like semiconductors are all like being moved in containers for each stage of the process. And then obviously Taiwan and China are also big parts of that piece as well. I would say China obviously is more within China, but
yes. Taiwan, I think, plays a very critical role right now within semiconductor manufacturing. And I think if I had to guess, I don't know, I can't guess. Obviously, it's 14 different countries, but if I had to guess, there's probably some effort in trying to device it outside of Taiwan as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's going to be interesting. So I think that's the real reason why this is new, because you said, hey, is it already decentralized? The answer is somewhat decentralized, or at least at different nodes. But I think Pax Silica sounds to me more like, okay, we're moving more parts of the value chain that was in Taiwan across the wider region.
I think so. Which could be a good thing. A good thing for all of us, hopefully.
Yeah, it's like Japanese factories, Chinese factories. I think the means of production can distribute that for more resilience. I think what's interesting about rare earths and other minerals is that I think there's actually quite a lot of movement in Southeast Asia for that, right? I think on one end, Malaysia offered rare earths as a mine to the US, mining partnership, which is one thing that's interesting. And then, of course, that's interesting is that Indonesia had a similar dynamic where they have a lot of commodities. And so they've been systematically under the Jokowi and now under the Prabowo administration starting to do some version of like, hey, we will do a export ban of the raw material. So to force more processing within Indonesia.
Yeah, we saw that as well.
And a lot of that capital actually coming in is actually from the Chinese, actually. So the Chinese are setting up those processing factories because there's a lot of like chemicals, a lot of engineering, and you need a lot of scale. So it's interesting actually that that's happening. And I think Indonesia has seen some success in moving up the value chain with that.
Yeah.
And I think they're looking to do more of it.
Well, we see that too in the Philippines, which is, I think, why I made that point earlier as well. Like the Indonesians are doing a great job of doing onshore processing, right, and refining. And the Philippines is just simply not doing a great job of it.
Yeah.
And so there is obviously a great opportunity there. We just watch our bigger brothers, the Indonesians, to see how they're pulling it off.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think I want to summarize the big takeaways from the conversation. I think one is obviously that the energy crisis has hopefully come to one chapter close.
One chapter,
And then I think a lot of learnings for everybody about EV, solar cells, renewables, diversification, and even like political promises around energy and how societies need to mobilize. Second, thanks for sharing about like the Philippines around the economic strategy around Pax Silica, around like rare earths and other minerals. And thirdly, of course, thanks for sharing about the political climate and dynamics in the Philippines, which is actually eye-opening for me as well.
Fun.
Yeah.
It's more fun in the Philippines, man.
This is very boring Singapore. The more boring, the better.
You gotta have a humor to do business in the Philippines. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. On that note, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you for listening to Brave. If you enjoyed this episode, please share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. We would also appreciate you leaving a rating or review. Head over to www.bravesea.com for member content, resources, and community. Stay well and stay brave.